Thanks for tuning in to the Terrifying Texas podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lexi. Since the Halloween special was such a hit, I thought I would find some scary Christmas stories to narrate. By the way, if you haven't listened to the Halloween episode, check it out now. This is the Terrifying Texas Christmas special. Let's get into our first story. This story is by Reddit user Manon Lysette. A spy cam in my Christmas tree got more than just Santa. Last year on Boxing Day, I found a really cool ornament in a clearance box. It had a built-in camera to record a unique perspective on your holiday celebrations. I grabbed the last one from the store's dusty shelf and brought it home for less than $10. I forgot about it until my wife, my 2 daughters, and I decorated the house earlier this month. I told my daughters about the camera and said we'd secretly catch Santa in the act. I had an old costume in the attic and intended to deliver some gifts in full view of the camera on Christmas night. My girls were overjoyed and went back and forth trying to find the best place to put the ornament on the tree. They had no idea Daddy repositioned it later so I could actually catch the living room at a good angle. In the nights leading up to Christmas, I turned on the camera to make sure everything was working properly. In the morning, I previewed the footage, just long enough to confirm the thing was working. Satisfied, I inserted the micro SD card back into the ornament, slipped in a new battery in anticipation for the big night. Daddy didn't want to disappoint his girls with a failed recording. We enjoyed Christmas Eve as a family, playing board games and eating way more junk food than there was room in our stomachs. Like we do every year. We let our daughters open one gift from Mommy and one from Daddy before going to bed. The girls, still riding their sugar high, could be heard giggling in their bedrooms from all the way up the stairs. From time to time, my wife and I could hear one of them shush the other, claiming she heard hoofs on the roofs or bells jingling. Eventually, our kiddos dozed off. My wife kissed me on the cheek and headed to bed while I turned off all of the lights. I retrieved the costume and tiptoed into the living room, getting ready for my big feature film debut. I did everything you would expect Santa to do. I ate most of the cookies, I drank the milk, I pet my large stomach and said my ho-ho-hos. And I dropped a few presents by the fireplace in full view of the camera. A pretty good acting job if I do say so myself. On Christmas morning, the girls came running into our bedroom to wake us up. They excitedly insisted that we watch the video before opening the presents. I transferred the footage to my laptop, forwarded to where Santa showed up, and pressed play. My girls squealed with delight and jumped in front of the screen, frantically waving at Santa while obscuring the video from my view. It brought me so much joy to see how happy the girls were. I was too lazy to stop the video, so it continued to play in the background while we unwrapped our gifts. I spotted a box I had not seen the night before. It was small and wrapped in blue foil paper. I didn't recognize it. My name was on it, but my wife seemed as surprised as I was. Noticing my confusion, my youngest daughter spoke. "Daddy, that's gotta be from Mr. Elf," she said, her voice cheerful and bright. I was ready to dismiss her elf comment as just another weird thing kids say, but my wife wasn't so quick to ignore it. "Honey, what elf?" she asked. My daughter pointed to the laptop. By then, the video had ended and all that was left on the screen was a preview of the first frame. "The one that came with Santa," she answered. Panic struck me like a bird in a jet propeller. I know my wife didn't dress up as an elf. I scanned the video, clicking forward and back until I saw what my daughter had seen. There was someone in the living room. He walked into the corner after I had turned the lights off. He stood there watching me parading around as Santa. The video went completely quiet after that. It was as though the camera failed to record a single sound. The strange, tall man in an elf costume stood perfectly still for over an hour, watching the camera from a distance. After a while, he walked over to the plate of cookies and bit the head off of a gingerbread man. I glanced at the plate and saw his teeth marks on the decapitated cookie. The man then quietly approached the Christmas tree. I thought the audio wasn't working, but as he reached the tree, I began hearing his slow and steady breathing. He reached towards the ornament and the video stopped. In a terrified frenzy, I grabbed the blue box he had left behind. I ripped the bow off and tossed the frilly thing away. I frantically removed the wrapping paper, opened the box, and looked inside. There, on a bed of bubble wrap, was the battery I'd put in the camera the night before. My wife took the ornament and opened the back. The battery was missing. I don't know what scares me more, what the camera caught or what the elf might have done after he turned off the camera. So that one was so scary. Intruder type stories freak me out the most because they can happen in real life, just a reminder. But let's move on to our second story. Our second story is by Reddit user GDO Kim. And it's called "'Twas the Christmas of '85. Several days ago, I attended a Christmas party where the host asked, "What was your most memorable Christmas?" I thought about it for a moment and then said, "The Christmas of '85. I can still remember the Christmas of '85 like it was yesterday. It was blisteringly cold on that fateful Christmas back in '85. The ground was covered in 2 inches of snow due to a blizzard that hit the night before. I had just finished a 9-hour shift at my uncle's restaurant at the local mall, so I was exhausted and I just wanted to go home. My parents were out of town for the holidays, so I was alone except for their 2 dogs, Sasha and Sadie, both German Shepherds. Anyways, it was around 5:30 p.m. when I finally arrived home, and by this time, it was already dark outside. I could hear Christmas carolers out in the distance as I let the dogs out to pee. When they were finished, I went back inside and made myself a sandwich and a cup of hot chocolate. After eating my sandwich, I walked back to the living room with my hot chocolate and switched on the TV at the 6 o'clock news. Lately, the talk at work was about the 3 bodies that were discovered last month near the mall, with their throats nearly ripped out. The coroner ruled the deaths accidental despite visible scratch marks all over the bodies. Anyways, after I'd finished watching TV, I locked all of the doors and then laid down on the couch. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I passed out. I was asleep for no more than 30 minutes when something jolted me out of my sleep. Letting my eyes adjust to the dark, I scanned the living room. I noticed both Sasha and Sadie growling in the direction of the kitchen. I stood up and reluctantly walked over to the kitchen, all the while trembling like a leaf. Upon entering the kitchen, I saw a face at the window. Although it was too dark to make out any features, I knew it wasn't human because of those glowing yellow eyes. I must be tired, I thought to myself, because I was starting to see things that weren't real. That's when it smiled at me, exposing razor-sharp teeth. "What do you want?" I nervously asked, but before I could finish my sentence, the creature broke through the window, shattering glass everywhere. This caused my adrenaline to rise. I could feel the claws on my hands begin to grow as the rage grew inside of me. I screamed in pain as they tore through my flesh. I felt my body getting warm and bones crack, causing me to let out an agonizing howl. The creature stood there, frozen in place, as I charged at it, ripping off its hand. It screamed in pain as I proceeded to rip off its other arm, biting chunks of its skin in the process. After a few minutes of this, it collapsed onto the floor where it lies there, unmoving in a pool of its own blood. Later on, the police found me passed out on the floor apparently. The silent alarm had gone off, alerting the authorities. The creature, although badly injured, was still alive. After they tranquilized the creature, I shouted, "Monster!" Not like it would understand me, though. The authorities later thanked me for being brave. Anyway, the creature was eventually taken away to some unknown research facility, located just outside of town, in order to conduct testing on it. That was 37 years ago. Now I work for the research facility where the creature is being kept. Last week, though, the creature escaped, and now I'm in fear for my life. I think a little Christmas monster action is just what this episode needed. So let's go on to our next story. This story is by Reddit user Well Hey Productions, and it's called "Waiting for Santa." When I was very young, I was bound and determined to stay up late and make sure that I would meet Santa Claus as he came down the chimney. Like a good boy, I went to bed when my mom and dad said so, but I waited until they went to bed and I quietly snuck back downstairs, hopped on the couch, snuggled in, and waited. After what seemed like hours, I heard a jingle emanate from the chimney. I watched closely and saw some soot trickle down from inside the chimney. Then suddenly I heard a loud snap, like something cracking in half. Then nothing. I waited and waited, but nothing followed. And soon my heavy eyes got the better of me and I fell asleep. I woke up Christmas morning to be surrounded by police officers and firemen as they were focusing on the chimney. Mom and Dad were holding me very tightly in their arms as one of the police officers were asking them some questions. Soon they realized I was awake and squeezed me very tightly and cried. I asked them what happened. My mom covered her face and continued to weep, and my dad simply choked on his words. The officer asking them questions then told me that a very bad man had been slipping down the chimney and hurting little boys and girls in the neighborhood, but he had been stopped. I found out years later that what had actually happened that night was the man in question was crawling down our chimney on Christmas Eve. He had slipped and snapped his neck on the way down and died. The firemen that night were out fishing his corpse when I woke up on Christmas morning. I never believed in Santa Claus after that. That took a really, really dark turn really, really fast. But let's move on to our last story. This one is by Reddit user Favorite Student, and it's titled Christmas Morning. Daddy, my daughter's soft shivering voice woke me up. I asked what's wrong, but she was in complete silence, weeping softly while hugging me close. Did Marcus scare you again? I asked and waited for an answer. I saw Santa. He asked me what I wanted for Christmas, she said with a quiet and more like whispering tone. I hugged her and started brushing her hair with my rough hands. It's funny because children will automatically be excited when they are asked for what they wanted for Christmas. Normal children will say the most ridiculous gifts that they want to receive. So, what did you wish for? I asked. Daddy, you never said that Santa also carries children inside of a sack. He said that if I go inside, all of my wishes will come true. I got scared, so I ran. I jumped out of bed immediately, took my gun out of the closet, and ran as fast as I could to my son's room. As I opened the door, all I saw was the trail of blood leading to my daughter's room outside of her window. Police and my wife came as quick as possible. We never found him. He was gone. After months without any clue to my son's whereabouts, they were forced to declare the case as death in absentia. Driven mad by hopeless longing, I started losing my self-control, making things rough between me and my family. My family decided that it's good for us to celebrate Christmas this year. I agreed and helped out. Surprisingly, most of my neighbors also wanted to partake in the family's gathering. Weird, but my wife was so happy about this, she was extremely excited. As people came around bringing food, gifts, and wine as their contribution, I felt this kind of heaviness I couldn't describe. I remembered Marcus and wished that he was still with us. I could hear people talking about lamb chops and cookies that my huge neighbor who will be moving out tomorrow brought. The oddly gigantic gift that Jane gave us, and Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds' breathtaking singing talent. We prayed, we ate, and we told the most amazing stories that made everyone laugh. I felt guilty that I appeared to be happy, but deep down inside, all I could think about is Marcus, our dearest son. It has been a year, right? I whispered to my wife. She took my hand and I instantly knew that everything will be all right. December 25th. Martha was so excited opening her gifts. They were clothes and gadgets given by her family members. Then I saw this particularly leatherish covered holiday card with a familiar texture. It was from my moving neighbor. Merry Christmas to the Sallys. Thank you for welcoming me to your humble abode. I hope you enjoyed my company as I enjoyed yours. A smile printed to my face as I saw a cute drawing of a big fat man who I pictured that it was supposed to be him. P.S. How were the lamb chops? Your son was appetizing, wasn't he? Puzzled, I lowered my eyes and saw what I knew was our tormentor's handwriting. From Santa. Ooh, that was really, really dark. I really loved finding these stories to narrate to y'all, so I hope I can do more in the future. Anyways, that's it for me. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Terrifying Texas Podcast. Send me case suggestions. Have a Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate, and I will see y'all in 2023. Lexi out for the last time in 2022. Bye.